Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, Elizabeth Dutton.
Oh, hey, what's up?
You know what's ridiculous?
I do.
Oh, okay, go on.
I'm enthusiastic about it.
Hit me with it.
Space has a smell.
Wait, what?
Space has a smell.
It's like outer space?
Yeah.
What does it smell like?
One astronaut said it smelled strong and unique. Well, that doesn't tell me much.
Yeah, come on, bro.
Another one said it smelled like seared steak and raspberries.
Are they just smelling their helmet?
Well, no, apparently it's not metal, it's metallic, ozone, acrid. It's like welding fumes, some have said. Do you know what the source of the smell is?
Astronaut gas?
I'm going to get so emo.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to give you the smell of space is from dying stars.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like a hydrocarbon gas?
Yeah, it's rich in carbon, low in oxygen. So it gives you the smell of space is dying stars.
That was so emo that my hair just laid flat against my forehead.
I'm going to go flat iron my hair and I'm going to sit outside and pout and write a poem.
Yeah, I'm already starting that, like just so quietly on the inside.
I'm going to start a Tumblr about it.
That's amazing.
Hey,
Elizabeth, do you remember when people could smoke on airplanes?
Yeah, actually I do.
Pretty much ends in like 1989. And I actually never flew on a plane because both my parents were terrified of planes, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't get to fly on a plane until I was like a teenager. And so first time I got on a plane, they still had the ashtrays in the seats, but people weren't allowed to fly. So I got to like open up an ashtray and see all these old desiccated cigarette butts. They hadn't cleaned it out. That was like the first time I flew. One of my first memories is going, oh, an ashtray. What's this doing here? Opening it up, right? But I've heard from people who do recall smoking on airplanes. Which just seems absolutely wild now, looking back. Like you're in this little pressurized silver tube in the sky, no windows, and the person next to you is just puffing on Lucky Strikes. The person next to them's got a Marlboro Red heater going. Person behind you's got like a cigar. I mean, like that is insane.
And then they have this idea of smoking sections.
Yes,
as if it's not, well, it's even like in restaurants. I can remember smoking sections in restaurants. And it's like, okay, so I'm in one booth over and I'm suddenly, we're not smoking in this section, but I'm going to...
Let me drop my air wall.
I'm still going to get the old Virginia Slim smoke from that lady over there.
My salad still tastes like Virginia Slims.
Gross.
But like the crazier thing to think about is looking back at that same time, you were even more likely than you could possibly imagine now to be on a plane that was hijacked.
Wait, what? Oh, that's true.
I was thinking, like, you would be on, like, oh, we're thinking back, like, oh, it's wild that, like, they could smoke on planes. But people back then are like, I'm just glad this plane hasn't been hijacked. Because the amount of hijacking in the 70s, and it was pretty much the 70s, was off the charts compared to now.
Yeah. In the 70s, people didn't wear shirts, and they hijacked planes.
Yes,
exactly. It was
an
amazing time.
And they were against seatbelts. It's just like they were just smoking and flipping off anything that was safety related.
Kids hanging out in the bed of a truck.
Yeah, on their day off from working 2 shifts.
Lawn darts.
Oh, my God. Well, I want to tell you a story of a Skyjacker, a dude named Garrett Brock Trapnell.
Wait, wind that back. Tell me one more time his name.
His name, and I'm glad you asked, is Garrett Brock Trapnell.
I don't like him already, but go ahead.
Oh, no, sister.
No.
You're going to like this one. This is Ridiculous Crime, a podcast about absurd and outrageous capers, heists, and cons. It's always 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous. Elizabeth.
Zaron.
The 70s.
God bless them.
It's a time we've talked about a few times. We've told a few stories from this decade and along the course of this podcast. Now, there's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
And the reason is the 70s were unhinged.
Ridiculous.
Just completely ridiculous, completely like lawless. Like most of the things that we would think of as being normal, commonplace behaviors did not exist in the 70s, which you think wasn't that long ago. That's how far we've come, baby, like a pack of Virginia Slims. Now, the 70s were weird because they followed the 60s, which was a tumultuous time. Well,
That's weird how it went in
chronologically. It's
order.
not weird. But this fact that like the 70s followed the 60s, there had to be a reaction to the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So people were like, we survived all that. You know, are people going to still be burning down the cities every summer? Are we going to still be arguing about everything violently? People are like, yeah, kind of. But I don't know. Maybe we just kind of like just chill for a little bit. And they're like, okay, what if we just all get into crime? And everyone's like, cool, let's all do that. And we're talking like everybody, the president, your neighbor, anybody who was doing crime in the 70s. At least it feels like that, right? Because no, I'm serious. Okay, Richard Nixon was the president for a large part, or the early part of the 70s, from 1970 to 74. He's quoted, and he was talking to David Frost, the journalist, and he said at the time, and he was talking about anti-war protesters and the possibility of him doing illegal things against anti-war protesters who were against the Vietnam War. And he said, and I quote, well, when the president does it, that means that it's not illegal. Right? That was the attitude of the 70s. Like, look, if I'm doing it, it's cool.
Right.
So the 70s also marks a very interesting time for these criminals that I've told you. Everybody's going lawless, is because this was basically the last time there was no DNA evidence. There was no computer databases. There was no interstate kind of communication between law enforcement. You could basically go over the county lines, or at worst, go over the state lines and pretty much be a new person.
Oh, yeah.
All right? Well, that allowed a lot of people with flexible morality to go and try
That's a great way to put
becoming new people, right? Now, in the case of my man, Garrett Brock Trapnell, this meant he felt that he could go and steal a plane and fly it to a different country and, commit a series of robberies and then use that as his getaway vehicle. Or he could, hijack a cross-country jet and demand that Angela Davis go free.
What? Hey, why not?
Right?
Why not? Shoot the moon.
Exactly. I mean, if you shoot for the moon, you land in amongst the stars.
Exactly.
Now, I do love that when he steals the plane, one of his first requests, or demands rather, is free Angela.
That's the number one on the list.
Yeah, no, it's like this, for those who don't know, Angela Davis was a black activist, radical, and a college professor at the time, who then gets involved in a murder case because somebody she knows gets in a shootout in a court. And they say that she somehow gave the weapons to this person and their friends. And so she gets put on as an accomplice in this murder trial. So this guy's like, that's not justice. This bank robbing, plane stealing person's convinced that this is not right.
Old Brock, he won't stand for it.
Exactly. So I told you, Brock is more than just his name.
That's a cursed name, by the way.
Well, yeah, I'm with you there. Now, the term Skyjacker, you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now, that's not really a term you hear much anymore.
Not anymore. Good luck trying to skyjack a plane.
Exactly. This is because of the 70s. This is when they introduced metal detectors. They introduced most of what we think of as hey, what if we locked the cabin to the cockpit? Things that we'd be like, you do what now?
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't just let people get on the plane with loaded weaponry. That's probably,
maybe. Just
maybe
a thought.
That's not their right, So skyjacking. Now, it was a big time occupation in the 70s. It's also one of my favorite words. I mean, just right there, skyjacking.
Skyjack.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know why, but it just has a musicality to it. I think I've told you this. My friend, his father used to make fun of, tease us, about liking Star Wars. And so he always called Luke Skywalker Duke Skyjacker, just to drive my friends.
That name is way better.
Right? So he's like, hey, you guys watching that movie with your guy, Duke Skyjacker? It's Luke Skywalker.
Come on, Dad.
To this day, I still think of Duke Skyjacker. You're right. It's the better name.
It's the better name. Oh, that's incredible.
So skyjacking, I considered it as a career path, but it wasn't available to me, when I grew up.
Well, because when they had career day, they didn't have any skyjackers come through and tell you about it. It seemed too far away.
Here's how you steal a plane and fly to Cuba. That's what I wanted to know as a boy. But anyway, back in the 70s, like I said, skyjacking, pretty much a competitive sport because there's all this easy access. Everyone can just walk on, no metal detectors. They got the weapons, right? Now, sometimes this worked out for the skyjackers. They would steal the plane. They'd fly to Angola. They'd fly to Cuba. They'd say, we want these political exiles freed. We want this ransom money. And they'd get it. Other times, the, snipers would take them out from outside the plane.
Right.
Or even sometimes go onto the plane and take them out. So you never really knew as a skyjacker what the ending would be. Now, Elizabeth, to give you a sense of how it was back in the 70s, I want you to take you inside of a skyjacking.
Ooh, okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I'd like you to close your eyes and picture it. It's Friday, January 28th, 1972. A little less than a month from now, Nixon will fly to China to meet Chairman Mao. Everybody's talking about this trip. It's going to be, and everybody knows this, a history-making trip. It will change the course of the world, right? Now, in the U.S., the culture is kind of in a weird place at this point. It's 1972. Now, the number one song on the top of the charts is by Don McLean. Do you know which song I'm talking about? It's American Pie.
Yeah.
The song about driving a Chevy to the levee because the levee was dry. But the levee was dry.
The day the music died.
Exactly, right? So basically we have America that is a pre-Watergate America, mind you, that is still lamenting the loss of Americana. Is in this angsty place, right? So you're sitting in the airport and you're listening to a transistor radio in the hand of a passenger as it plays this song, and you're thinking about America and how it's changing. You're in LA. You're waiting for a plane from LAX to JFK Airport in New York. It's a red-eye flight. It's a Friday night. You're scheduled to depart about 10:15. Being you've shown up early to the airport.
7:30.
Yeah, you've counted the people waiting for the plane, and you see that there are about 93 people waiting for this TWA flight. You see the Boeing 707 airplane pull into the gate. It's a 4-jet airplane, Big Daddy. It's ushered in the jet age. This is the plane that is of the day. Now, passengers deplane. It's your turn. You go and you walk down the jetway to board your TWA flight number 2 to New York. Lucky for you, you're seated in first class. Look at you. Pay for that. Luxury. Now the plane takes off on time. It roars up into the sky, 600 miles an hour, 37,000 feet in the sky, cruising above the clouds. Problem is, you're an insomniac, so you can't quite drift off to sleep.
Oh, I can't sleep on planes.
Exactly. No. And this is true to life. You're sitting there wide-eyed. There's a talkative couple in front of you. You hear this woman say her name, Miss Bonnie Fahm. I'm from Sun Valley, California. And you're like, oh, God, Bonnie Fahm, please stop. But she's been upgraded to first class, so she's new to the area. She doesn't know that people don't talk in this area. But anyway, she's there. From where you sit, you can see that there is a man seated next to her, and he's got on this cast and a leather jacket. That's about all you can see from where you are seated. This brown leather jacket and the cast, mind you, goes up past the elbow to almost the shoulder. It looks like it must have been a bad break, right? So Bonnie Fahm eventually stops chatting, thank goodness, and you're able to kind of maybe drift off to sleep. Nope, still can't, but she falls asleep. You can hear her snoring. A few hours pass, your insomnia is still dragging on. You're like, am I ever going to get to sleep? Around 2 a.m., you notice the man with the cast slip something out of his pocket. And you're like, oh, what's going on? You notice it's a razor. Is he going to shave on the plane? Nope. He then, somewhere high over Iowa, decides to cut open the plaster arm cast with the razor. And you're like, what is about to pop out? He then smashes himself in the face, and then you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Blood starts coming out of his face. He starts smearing the blood all over his face. You're not quite sure if maybe you're dreaming this or not. Maybe you have fallen asleep, but then he pulls out a revolver from the cast. You're like, I would not dream a gun. There's no guns in my dreams. That would have been like an early Jane's Addiction 7-inch coming out of the cast, not a gun. So the gun looks like a World War II gun. You don't really know guns well, but you're like, is that like one of them Nazi guns?
It looks like a Nazi pow-pow gun.
It is. It's a Nazi pow-pow Luger. And you see him wave down the flight attendant. You're like, oh, this is not going to go well. The man in the brown leather jacket, he hands her a note. She reads it and then mouths the words, you're being hijacked. You're like, oh, no.
Well, but this is a common thing, though, right?
This has happened, but never to you. This is your first hijacking.
Yeah.
You're hoping the flight attendant's going to be cooler about it. Maybe she's been through a couple. The man in the brown leather jacket walks with her up the aisle towards the cockpit. You're wondering if you're going to make the Tina Turner concert that you're headed to New York to see.
Oh,
you're like, oh, Tina, I don't know if I'm going to make it. You're starting to panic when the flight attendant knocks on the cockpit door. The cockpit door opens, and the two of them go into the cockpit. The door closes. You're like, oh, no, now the gun's up there with the pilots. So inside the cockpit, we have co-pilot Hank Getz. He looks up, he sees the gun, immediately knows what's happening. He's like, not again.
Well, yeah, he's going to immediately know what's happening. It's not like, oh, I wanted to get some of those little plastic wings. Don't mind the gun. And the blood all over my face.
This is in case you were a little argumentative. And I had to make my point.
It was like a new fake cast, because if he took off a cast, like those get ripe.
The smell
when
alone
you go to take
class.
an old cast off,
So Getz, the co-pilot, he describes this guy, Trapnell, as, quote, just an honest all-American criminal. He's very well-spoken, well-dressed. He's also well-armed. So you notice, as I told you, the German Ruger in his hand. The pilots see this. They're like, oh, this is not going to go well for us. But things, for whatever reason, maintain a smoothness. And you're like, this is my first hijacking. I don't know how this goes.
Yeah.
Maybe this will play out well. Plus, it's a red-eye flight. Most of the other passengers don't even know the plane's been hijacked. They're still asleep.
Maybe we'll get commemorative patches.
And as you wonder what comes next in this hijacking, you see New York City coming into view outside the window of the plane. You're like, oh, nice, New York. But then you keep flying. And now you're wondering where you guys are going. Are we going to fly to Europe?
I'm going to miss the
Cuba?
concert.
But then you see New York come back into view.
Oh,
Yay!
thank God.
The plane must be circling, but you still don't land. So now you're noticing again, You're flying still. Oh, New York comes back into view. Yay! But you keep flying, right? And you're like, oh, come on. And finally the plane is starting to descend. You're like, I think we're going to land. And yet, it looks like you were headed to the airport. There's JFK. You come touching down. New York City welcomes you. The plane touches down by 7 a.m. You and all the other passengers are let off the plane. Oh. Nobody is hurt. And you're only an hour late to New York. Skyjackings be damned, right? It looks like you're going to still make that Tina Turner concert.
Yes.
Except the flight crew has been forced to remain behind. They're being held as hostages. And in the airport, you notice there is a huge amount of press. But it's 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. How could all of New York already know about this hijacking?
Well, they probably called ahead that they were...
Nope. Turns out they're there for Nixon and China.
Get out of town.
TWA's got a big old plane on a press junket waiting to fly to China as the advance team for Nixon's flight. So all of the press is there at the airport waiting to watch this plane take off. And they see you guys come in on a hostage move. So now,
don't mind us.
The pilots and the air crew on your former plane are there with a Skyjacker, and they're on the radio with ground control, and the two groups are all on this big group call. Now, we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to get right back into this chaos because this Skyjacking is not even done.
Oh, my God.
Okay, Elizabeth, your Skyjacking, it's still on. You are in the airport. You're free. But the Skyjacker is still on the plane that you were just on, and you're worried about the flight attendant who was so kind to you in first class, who's been held back by the Skyjacker. You're worried, so you're kind of milling about with the press.
And hello, if it's me, I am nosy. I'm not going to concerts at night. It's 7 a.m. I'm like, I want to see how this is going to...
I got some time.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely kill that time. You hang out in the airport.
Yes.
Now, meanwhile, co-pilot Hank Getz, he's still in the cockpit with the Skyjacker, and he starts trying to explain. This is from later on, once he's out of the cockpit, he tells the story of what was going down inside that cockpit and all the chaos that I was just first telling you about. Now, here is his account, and I quote. We got us in the cockpit. We've got the FAA, we've got the FBI, we've got ground control, we've got TWA Vice President of Operations, we have some psychologist down in Dallas who's written a book on skyjacking. We're plugged into the Dallas County Jail where Jorge Padilla is, who's his buddy who stuck up all the banks. He's trying to get him out of jail, and we're plugged into his lawyer down in Miami, all on the same frequency. It was total chaos. So just try to imagine that call. Yeah, exactly, right? So you're inside the airport, not having to deal with any of this, thank God. But you notice the CBS radio reporter just kind of squatted down next to a kid. And you're like, well, what's going on there? Yeah. The kid is holding a shortwave radio, and you can hear the radio call between the tower and the plane. The reporter is asking the kid if he'll sell him the radio for $5. The kid's like, I don't know, mister. And his radio reporter's like, come on, kid, how about $50? Kid's like, all right, you got a deal, mister. So he gives him the radio. Now, just to keep in mind, that's about $350 today. So the kid, he got to come up,
yeah, he did.
So this reporter from CBS, he starts broadcasting live from the airport. The mic he holds up to the radio he just bought from the kid and is just playing the calls between the tower, the FAA, the psychologist in Dallas.
Oh, and I am sitting right next to him. I'm not budging now. I am listening
I knew
to
this would root you in the scene, right? Also, the other person who's listening to this, the co-pilot, Hank Getz, his wife is in California listening on the radio because this is a serialized broadcast that is being broadcast on all of the networks around the country from this CBS reporter.
Oh, wow.
So she's listening to local KNS 1070, listening to her husband's hijacking in New York.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, on this group call that you're listening to over the radio, there is Dallas area psychiatrist David Hubbard, and he's trying desperately to keep his patient calm. He's been working with this Skyjacker for 2 years.
Oh, so it's this, okay.
He calls his psychiatrist, basically. So he's got his psychiatrist trying to talk him down and keep this crew safe and keep the plane on the ground. And Trapnell, he's not unhinged. He's pretty calm, but he tells the tower and everyone listening on the radio, which at this point is pretty much everyone with the radio in America, we're going to take off and circle around Kennedy for a while. I'll talk to you from the air. Now, the plane has been fueled up. They got 22,000 gallons of fresh jet fuel.
Oh, no.
Plane takes off, and they're back up in the sky, circling around New York again like he wants to get the tourist view. Now, for the next hour and 5 minutes, plane circles, and he's talking to the radio. Like, I don't know if he's thinking, like, they can't get to me if I'm up in the sky or something.
They can't see me.
Now, meanwhile, you've left the airport. You're on your way to your hotel. You and the taxi driver are still riveted, listening to the ongoing skyjacking on the radio. And the skyjacker is negotiating with the folks in the airport tower. He's up there. And what no one listening can see is that there are FBI sharpshooters getting into position. Now, at the same time, co-pilot Hank Getz is out there schmoozing with the Skyjacker Trapnell, and he's trying to get this guy to, like, you know, be cool with them, and maybe, like, really what it is, he wants to get the hell off the plane. So he's like, you know, we need to do a crew exchange. We've been at this for hours as a red-eye flight. We're super tired. If we stay up here much longer, the pilot's going to fall asleep, and then that plane's going to crash. Negotiations. You got to look at physical facts, man. The guy's like, okay, we'll do this crew change. Fly me back to JFK. That seemed like a cool airport.
Smart
right?
move.
Well, he had lied to him. The guy had enough gas to make it to Dallas, but the pilots, they told him, look at the logbook. We'll have to stop somewhere. I don't know the other airports. He's like, go back to JFK.
Those guys are smart.
Super smart. Thinking on their feet, right? So Trapnell then, at this point, he's like, we're going to land the plane. These are my demands, right? And so he tells them, not only does he want to be flown to Dallas so he can break his friend Jorge Padilla out of a Texas jail, he also wants $308,000 in ransom money, which is supposed to balance the books for this boat deal that he was involved with that went down. He wants exactly a yacht he bought from a guy and it was taken from him. Yeah. Then he also wants political prisoner Angela Davis to be freed from jail. And he also demands to be flown to Europe, preferably to Sweden, Denmark, or Spain, somewhere where he can be a political exile and live out a nice, luxurious life. And he also wants to talk to President Richard Nixon about the state of the country. So the negotiators, they're like, okay, we'll do it, man. And he's like, oh, great. Get Nixon on the phone, right? So
this guy is so messy.
So this skyjacker, he lets the flight crew get ready. He's like, okay, you guys can get off. Bring on the other ones. He's like, Getz, you stay behind. I want you to check them for weapons, right? So you and your taxi cab driver, you're listening to all of this on the car radio. You got the two of you are talking. Like, I can't believe this. What do you think is going to happen? I was on that plane.
Right.
He's like, get out. All right? So meanwhile, the 4 TWA flight crew, they're approaching your former plane, and Trapnell, the skyjacker, he's told co-pilot Hank Getz, checking for weapons. So as Getz recalls, quote, there was about 4 guys that came up. I recognized 2 of them as our company pilots. The other 2, I didn't. Well, that's because the other 2 are FBI agents.
Oh, boy.
So at that point, Trapnell, he's standing in the cockpit. He's got his Ruger on the pilots, and Getz, he's doing as he's told. He searched the flight crew for weapons. Trapnell lowers his guard, but he can still sense something's not quite right.
Yeah.
Now we cut to an undercover FBI agent, the man with the gun in his hand, who will tell you how this all plays out. And I quote, a couple of TWA employees, myself, and a flight attendant got in a station wagon and drove in Trapnell's direction, drove out to the tarmac. He wanted our hands up and he wanted to see that we did not have anything. Well, I had my standard FBI issue, which is a Smith & Wesson 6-shot revolver Model 10. I don't fly airplanes and I don't want to get stuck in the cockpit trying to fumble around there, and he'd realize something's up. At the top of the steps, I look in and I could see Trapnell half in and half out of the cockpit. So that's where we are, right? Now, Trapnell's gun hand falls to his side. The undercover FBI agent sees this. That's his move.
Yeah.
I could tell he was saying, wait, something's wrong here. Something's wrong. When that happened, I took one step in and opened fire on him. So he just starts, he's got these 2 pilots in a cockpit, a guy between him and the 2 pilots, and he just starts letting him have it. He puts 3 into the cockpit. They all luckily hit Trapnell. Then Trapnell gets hit in the arm. He shouts, I'm shot!
Well, luckily he has a cast.
Exactly. He's already medically ready. He spins around, collapses to the floor of the plane. Hostage crisis is over.
Wow.
No one has lost their life. Welcome to the 70s.
Nice.
So that's 70s style skyjacking. Now, Elizabeth, if you can believe it, this story of Gary Trapnell, the skyjacker, this was probably one of the more mundane stories of his life. This is not even the most exciting story of that I'm about to tell you. Because although you make your Tina Turner concert, and
thank God,
then, there's still a lot more for you to learn about this Gary Trapnell, and it starts coming out in the news. So, dude's government name, as I told you, Garrett Brock Trapnell. Well, turns out, as you soon learn, he comes from a family that is a very famous family, especially if you're in the Navy. His mother, she was old Massachusetts wealth, right? So she had money, but that's not the story that gives the family the zhuzh, if you will. His father's family was the truly impressive side. His father comes from Navy stock. His cousin, for instance, Admiral Frederick Trapnell, was the first Navy airman to ever fly a jet aircraft.
Oh.
Yeah, he flew the experimental Bell XP-59A. He was also a member of the Three Flying Fishes, which was the predecessor to the Blue Angels.
Oh.
So this guy's like a badass pilot, right?
Yeah.
His uncle was General Thomas Trapnell. He was a distinguished officer in the Army, and he survived the Bataan Death March. He was later an advisor in Vietnam. He told Kennedy personally, like, we should not go into Vietnam. Obviously, Kennedy did not listen to him.
Yeah, right.
Gary Trapnell's father was also a graduate of Annapolis, and Walter Trapnell, but was not like his father, his uncles, or cousins. He was something of a ne'er-do-well. He was kicked out of the Navy after he was discovered to be running a bordello in the Panama Canal Zone.
Oh.
Hot place to be running that little number.
Right?
So his parents get divorced after this whole thing plays out. Gary Trapnell gets sent to live with his mother's family in Boston, the wealthy side, but they are fighting all the time. It's a terrible environment for kids. So he gets sent to live with his father down in the Panama Canal Zone.
The calzone.
In the bordello. So he's 11 years old, living in a bordello with his father in the Panama Canal Zone. A year later, father passes away. Young Gary is turned out into the world in Panama. He then goes with what he knows. He moves into a brothel called House of Love in Panama City. So he's 12 years old. 12 years old, living in a brothel.
Oh, yeah, this poor kid.
Yeah, he then spends the next couple of years, in his teen years, growing up in this hotbed of crime, and he becomes a 6-foot-tall, medium-build high school dropout. Now, at age 17, he returns to America. He gets into the family business, the military. He joins the Army. He's out in Fort Hood. One of his uncles is like the commanding officer of Fort Hood. See, should be good. Yeah. But his uncle basically just constantly harasses him. He eventually gets drubbed out of the Army. So now you're 20 years old. It's the late 1950s. What are you going to do to make a living for yourself?
20 years old, 1950s, booted out of the, I don't know.
He starts running guns for Fidel Castro.
Oh, of course.
Right? You're
of course.
I know how to pilot a boat. I know what a gun is. Done deal. So
goodness.
That's his occupation for a while until he gets caught by the Batista government. And then it does not go well. He gets tried, sentenced to death, brought before the firing squad. Firing squad, they aim their rifles at him. They lower and aim them. They all ready to fire, squeeze their triggers. Nothing comes out because the guns are not loaded. It was to scare him. So he survives this. But they're even given the order to fire. I mean, it was like the whole thing, right?
He's like Captain Trauma. How much can you live through?
Exactly. Starting to catch up with me right now. Yeah. Okay, so Trapnell at this point, he's like, you know what? I'm going to get out of gun running. I'm going to get into something a little safer, like stick-up work. So he becomes a stick-up man. He finds his dude, Edgar Fleury, and he and Edgar Fleury, they hit up little towns in New Mexico, Iowa, Maryland. Apparently, they don't have a map. They're just bouncing all over the country.
Yeah.
And, in Iowa, they get caught in Des Moines. They are dressed up as tramps. They are robbing a finance firm.
Tramps meaning homeless people.
Like hobos. Like they're just
houseless individuals.
No, like hobos. Like 1930s style. Like we put train sludge on our face. Because I do like to think
they're dressed like
I've
tramps.
got a bindle. Yeah.
And they're like...
No, not like sluts or anything. Like, not that kind of hobos, tramps. Right? So they tie these employees' shoelaces together. And then that's their way to escape because then the employees can't chase them. So they get known as the shoestring bandits. That's his name at that time. But he, as I told you, he soon gets caught. And at this point, his life takes a major turn. Trapnell meets with his lawyer, and I quote, "A lawyer came up to me and he said, 'Trap, you're going to prison for 20 years, or you can go to the state hospital if you plead not guilty by reason of insanity.' So I went to the state hospital and I dug the whole action. I read more damn books on psychiatry and psychology than probably any psychology student will in any school in the world." So he decides he's going to become an expert in being insane. He becomes criminally insane. So this works out really well for him. He gets sent to a mental hospital for 1 year. After his trial, his partner, Ed Fleury, he gets 20 years for armed robbery. So he's like, this is the move, right? So at this point, Trapnell creates a whole new MO for himself. And not only that, he also creates a criminal alter ego, a guy named Greg Ross. This ploy works. Between 1961 and 1969, he gets arrested for car theft, armed robbery, forgery, just a raft of crimes, right? Each time he avoids jail by just pleading insanity. And then he goes to a mental hospital for about a year. Sometimes he just walks out of the mental hospital. They don't even care. Like 3 months in, he's like, I'm out of here, guys.
So like the Institute for the Criminally Insane just lets him stroll on out?
They're not like a jail, basically. They're like, we're a hospital, bro. So he keeps up this study of psychology and psychiatry, and he becomes really quite the expert. And I quote, "It's a classic Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. The temporary shot, which is much harder and more intricate, takes a bit more finesse, but it precludes hospitalization." So he's like telling like reporters and anyone who'll listen how he does this. And people are still allowing him to do this in court. So
it's public knowledge that
it's not necessarily like wide public knowledge, but it's not hard to find. They don't have the internet. So you would have to have caught this newspaper or seen this interview, right? So these juries aren't seeing it. These judges are not seeing it. These prosecutors in different towns. So if he talks to one reporter in Maryland, it doesn't show up in Iowa. Right? So, but he would tell them things like, he would go for, quote, "a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia with a surfacing and submerging nature, the classic dual personality compounded by paranoia, the sense of being persecuted. The result is an inability to differentiate between right and wrong due to this split personality." So he could start like spitting the verbiage and the language, the ways that the psychiatrists are like, oh, but he wouldn't do that in court. He would
act it out
in the one way or another so that they would then apply these terms. Pretty genius, right?
That is.
So, and on top of that, he also creates, as I told you, his dude, Greg Ross. So I quote, "Take Gary B. Trapnell and Greg Ross. They're both the same physical person, but they are two mentally different people. If Greg Ross commits a crime and the Greg Ross aspect submerges after he is put in prison and the Gary Trapnell aspect emerges, then Gary Trapnell is not responsible legally for what Greg Ross does. Whether it," that is the mental illness, "exists can never be proved because psychiatry as a science is the only science in the world that deals with extreme intangibles. I probably know more about psychiatry than your average resident psychiatrist. I can bullshit the hell out of one in 10 seconds.
So this is, in essence, it's his Chris Gaines to his Garth Brooks.
Yes, exactly. You nailed it. So
he's like, I'm not responsible for those singles that were released.
Garth didn't do that.
It was Chris.
Talk to Chris Gaines. That guy's a troublemaker. What with that weird black hairdo he's got. Anyway, so he's now able to pull off basically a decade of serious crime without ever having to any punishment, right? Now, if you can believe it, this is, like I keep telling you, not the wildest part of the Trapnell story. The wildest part is still yet to come.
Oh, no.
Yes, but I'll give you a hint of what's yet to come.
Okay.
A mother and daughter tried to spring him from prison.
Oh, wow.
Separately.
Whoa.
We're back after a break. Okay, Elizabeth, we're going to pick up our story now in March of 1970.
Beautiful.
This is 2 years before Trapnell skyjacks the flight you were on from L.A. to New York. And at the moment, in 1970, Gary Trapnell is a legitimate businessman. No, he literally is. He's living in L.A. He has a small business where he rents German Shepherd dogs for personal security.
Stop it. Yes. He rent a dog?
He rents dogs for personal security.
Like, for how long do people rent these dogs?
However long they need personal security. I don't know. I've never rented a dog.
That's so messed up.
It's the 70s, baby.
Rent
70s.
a dog.
So when he's not renting dogs, he's often found partying on the Sunset Strip where he meets a topless go-go dancer.
Wait.
Now, it doesn't matter to him that he's already previously married, in fact, multiple times. He decides he likes being married so much, he'll do it again. So he runs off with this topless go-go dancer to Las Vegas, of course, and they elope. And then he's like, you know what? This isn't really working for me. So I'm just going to take your credit cards and I'm going to split town. So he takes her credit cards, splits town, and he uses her diner's card to rent a plane. So he flies to the Bahamas with the rented plane.
And a couple German Shepherds.
He visits a jewelry store called the Emeralds of Columbia. He robs the store, steals about $100,000 worth of jewelry. He then races back to the airport in the Bahamas. The police are chasing him back to the airport. He drives right onto the tarmac, right up to the little plane that he rented, and flies back to America.
What?
Yes, and he gets away with it. The police arrive at the airport in time to watch his plane ascend into the clouds.
Oh, my
so
goodness.
This robbery marks a new career change for Trapnell.
Yeah.
So he's like, this is the new move, man. I'm telling you, this is where it's at. The getaway driver is the days of the past. It's all with the getaway flyer.
Yeah, right?
So he becomes a bank robber and he uses a plane as his getaway vehicle. Between March 1970 and September 1970, he flies into Canada and robs a bank every month for 7 months in a row.
Get out of here.
Just every month lands in, I'm going to rob you, and then flies back to America.
Oh, my God.
Finally, he gets a little too greedy. In September, he gets caught. And so he goes with his get out of jail free card. And he goes like, oh, I'm insane. And they're like, like, it's Greg Ross. Don't blame me. Blame Greg Ross.
Greg did it.
They're like, who's Greg Ross? And so it works even in Canada.
No.
So they put him in the Pinel Institute, which is this criminal hospital near Montreal. And he immediately gets to work on romancing a secretary. And then he convinces her to marry him. And on January 24th, 1971, the secretary sneaks a toy pistol into the mental hospital. She gives it to Trapnell to help him escape. He and the secretary make a run for it. He makes it all the way to the American border from Montreal, where he is stopped at the border by American authorities. But they do not return him to Canada. They're like, forget the Canucks.
Yeah.
We're taking you to Florida on this warrant we got, because he's been named on the warrant because he left his ID in the plane, so they know exactly who he is. So Trapnell does this thing. He feigns insanity. He convinces a prison psychiatrist to let him go free. A month after that, he's released in April of 1971. So Trapnell at this point, he then brags again. He gets interviewed by another reporter, and he brags, and I quote, "I have committed all of these crimes and have never gotten a number for any of them. It's the fallacy of your legal system." He's just like throwing it in everyone's face. And now, around this time, the FBI is investigating Trapnell over a civil case involving the allegedly stolen yacht that I told you about earlier.
Right.
Well, the owner turned up missing the day after it was sold to Trapnell. So Trapnell's like, "No, the guy took my money. He fled the country. I don't know." And then everyone's like,
really?
Trapnell's like, "I want my money." And that's why he did the ransom for $308,000. He always said he was the wronged party, even though the boat owner was never heard from again.
Yeah.
Well, the FBI is investigating this, and in testimony for this civil case, the FBI, they testify, and the FBI agent on the stand is trying to describe what it was like when they actually apprehended him in this hotel room. So he's testifying. He says, and I quote, "We found him in a hotel with an icebox full of fillets, good booze, a check writing machine, and what were supposed to be CIA credentials."
Oh my God. This guy has all the, whatever the most ridiculous detail he could just plug in there. Yeah. He doesn't go too, but it's just like,
he's a mad lib of crime.
Go-go dancer, the icebox
renting the German
full of
dogs.
steak.
Yeah. in the motel, yes.
Oh God.
So dude's keen to play super spy guy, right? Which is very common with these kind of criminals. We've come across this before where they're like, "Oh, I'm a super spy." Because apparently in America, if you have a FBI or CIA badge, any pain in the neck innocent bystander is gonna be like, "Well, whatever you're doing that's totally lawless makes sense because you're the CIA."
Yeah, exactly. You're mysterious. I'm not going to ask too many questions. It's a matter of national security.
I'm a good American. I'm not going to question the men in black. But, anyway, so the point is that the CIA badge is basically a get out of jail free card, but he doesn't need it because he has his I'm insane card, the Greg Ross card, right? So in late 1971, we're about to come up on 1972 where he's going to hijack your plane. And then Trapnell is going to get on that flight in LA, right? Mm-hmm. Sit down in first class right in front of you, bust open that cast. At this point, when he gets on that flight, he's been arrested at least 20 times and has gotten away with it every single time. He spent cumulatively about 2 years behind bars.
Wow.
Yeah, so now you can see why he had the confidence to steal your plane.
Yeah, why not? Obviously.
I'm going to talk to Nixon. I set Angela free. And by the way, give me a cup of coffee. I mean, So 5 months before he hijacks your plane, his famous family is once again involved in his story. Captain Joseph Trapnell, his cousin, is a pilot for a flight that gets hijacked because in the 70s, planes are just always getting hijacked. His cousin fights back and prevents the hijacking. This is the son of the famous test pilot. So the family histories are still running parallel, right? So Trapnell, he hijacks your plane. You get out, you go in your taxi cab driver. You guys are listening and everything plays out just as we just went over it, right? He gets shot by the undercover FBI agent. Well, eventually he goes to trial and he decides, you know what? I'm good at crime. I'm going to represent myself.
Oh, whoa.
And as you know, never a good move.
Bad move.
So in the trial, he decides, I'm going to go with my standard defense.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. It was Greg Ross. And so he does, in the trial, he focuses his attention not on the jury, just one juror. He picks a middle-aged social worker with a kind heart.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if
he knows, he knows his charm. So he aims at her and she falls for it. In fact, he knows so well that a week before the trial is set to end, he brags to a reporter. He's like, "Oh yeah, this trial is definitely going to go to a hung jury. I can tell you which jury it's going to be." And he says it's going to be her.
Are you kidding me?
Yep, the middle-aged social worker. 6 days later.
I'd say keep your mouth shut, but it hasn't hurt him so far.
Never once. 6 days later, he's 100% right. She's like, the only one of the 11 people in the jury are like, he's guilty as hell. She's like, "I don't know. Hung jury, trial goes to acquittal.
Wow.
President Nixon is following this trial, right? He's furious. This guy has brought him up in the news. He's demanding a retrial from the prosecutors because he's of the opinion if this works, you're going to have all these political activists and exiles running onto planes, taking them over, stealing them, flying to Angola and going, it's not me, it's Greg Ross. So he wants this defense put to an end, right? And at the same time, he's also pushing for something called a metal detector to be brought into the airport. So
that's right.
You get all these early, the early TSAs created because of Trapnell and Nixon's little tete-a-tete.
Whoa.
So Nixon is clocking this trial like it's the OJ trial, right? He's sitting there and he's watching as like it gets stranger and stranger. Eventually, in the retrial, Jorge Padilla is brought in. He is the star witness of this trial. He's brought in as a witness for the prosecution. Jorge Padilla, the friend who he wanted to go down to Dallas to break out of jail, he says that back in 1966, the two of them were incarcerated at the same hospital, right? A mental health hospital called Jackson Memorial in Miami, Florida. And Trapnell back then taught Padilla how to fake insanity to beat a case. This was all the jury needed to hear.
Wow.
Trapnell was convicted, sentenced to life in prison in Marion, Illinois.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, when they closed Alcatraz, that's where they sent everyone, was Marion, Illinois. It's the big old Supermax prison. So this is where Trapnell is going to spend the rest of his life, but it's also where he's going to find love. Whoa. Her name was Barbara Oswald. She was a middle-class single mother from a St. Louis suburb. She was in grad school when this all starts to take place. She's watching 60 Minutes and Trapnell is being interviewed, and she then is just admirous of him. Then she reads his book because he's published a book about all his crimes and stuff.
Has.
Well, he's helped. There's a journalist who wrote most of the book. He did interviews, but it's his book.
Right.
And she falls in love with this character. She sees him as a modern-day Robin Hood. She starts to write him love letters at Marion Prison. She then travels to the federal prison to visit her lover. And soon enough, she's like, you know what? I need to break you out, baby.
Oh, God.
So May 24th, 1978 rolls around. Barbara Oswald hires a helicopter to scout an investment property in the Missouri area. At least that's her cover. And sometime during the trip, Barbara pulls out a .44 caliber handgun, puts it on the helicopter pilot, and says, we're going to Supermax Federal Prison. And the helicopter pilot's like, oh, okay, ma'am, bet. Now, what she doesn't know is this helicopter pilot is a recent Vietnam veteran.
Oh,
so
man.
He's surprised by the gun in his face, but he doesn't lose his head.
It's not his first time around with that, I'm guessing.
No. He is a mud-soaked rodeo star. Ain't his first rodeo in the least. Right? Now, Barbara orders him to fly to the Supermax prison. He does as he's told. And, for most of it, he's complying. And then he's just really buying time, right? So eventually he gets a chance when she's kind of distracted for a moment, and he snatches the gun out of her hand. She's like, oh, you're not supposed to. Give me back my gun. And he's like, no, I ain't giving you back a gun. So she's like, oh, yeah. She goes to reach for another weapon because she's got a little 22 in her purse or something. She goes reaching for that. And then the pilot tries to snatch her hand, and the two of them fight over the gun. She reaches for the other gun in his hand, and then it goes off. Boom. He shoots her. She dies in the helicopter.
Whoa.
Total self-defense. So it doesn't really constitute murder, but this is our 1% we're hinging.
Yeah, I would say it's the 0.5%.
It's certainly a tragedy, right?
Exactly, but it's not our main focus here, and it's just a side quest.
Exactly. So the Barbara is now deceased and in the helicopter. The pilot, the Vietnam veteran, he's shaken, but he lands at the prison with the Barbara in the helicopter. The escape plan obviously has failed. Trapnell gets interviewed about this. Ever the quotable Trapnell. He says, escaping is as American as apple pie. If I had made it in that helicopter, the American public would have loved it. I don't know if that's true. But anyway, they probably would have enjoyed
50-50.
it. Yeah, exactly. So he goes on trial now for his attempted escape from the federal Supermax prison. And Barbara's daughter is there in court to testify. The 17-year-old Robin Oswald. She's not taken her mother's death well.
Well, sure.
I mean, yes, she's a 17-year-old girl. Her mother, she's a single mother. This is her whole world.
And her mom was trying to spring
a man out of prison.
A jailbird out. And ooh-wee.
Yeah. So she drops out of high school. And this girl was a star cheerleader, but she has to set down her pom-poms and deal with herself, right? Now, on the final day of the trial, December 21st, 1978, just a few days before Christmas, Robin Oswald boards a TWA flight headed to Kansas City.
Robin, get off the plane.
On board, she realized...
Robin.
No, I'm telling you this. She knows what she's doing.
Robin.
Once on board, she reveals that she has a bomb strapped to her midsection.
Robin, get over here.
And in her hand is a detonator. And she demands that the plane be flown to a small airport near Marion, Illinois, and that Gary Trapnell be allowed to walk free from the federal prison.
Robin.
She does not ask for Angela Davis to be free because she's already been freed. So she's been acquitted of that trial. If not... If she doesn't get what she wants, Robin tells everyone on board the plane she will blow up herself and everyone on the plane.
Robin.
The FBI gets called in. 10 hours of negotiations at last. Her brother and sister are brought in by the FBI. They're like, talk to your sister.
She is so grounded.
So they're trying to tell this former cheerleader not to go full terrorist. And she's like, free mom's boyfriend. And so Robin Oswald, meanwhile, though, is very calm and very patient. She's not like ranting, raving, none of it. At one point, she brags, or I don't know if brag's the right word, but she says to the FBI agents, aren't I the nicest hijacker?
Oh, this like flipped her goofball switch. Like
totally.
Now she's like, it's not me, it's Gary Ross.
It's Gary Rena Ross. So 10-hour ordeal extends. Eventually, Robin comes to her senses and she decides to let everyone go off of the plane unharmed. And it turns out the bomb that she had strapped to her was actually just 3 road flares and a doorbell.
Oh, God.
She's like,
it's like if you had like a terrorist Halloween costume.
Exactly. She went down to like the Spirit Halloween store and was like, can I get Skyjacker costume?
And no one was looking at it being like, wait, those are road flares.
Yes. So it worked long enough.
Oh
anyway, around that exact same time, like almost exact same time, the jury in Trapnell's prison escape, they return the verdict and he's guilty, sentenced to another life sentence.
Oh.
And that is where Gary Trapnell spends the rest of his days in the Supermax prison hanging out with like John Walker Lind and...
Oh, yeah. That's the, like you said, the Supermax, real one. The high profile one.
Oh, yeah. That's why he's down there in the basement with all the like high profile guys and they're like playing bingo for the rest of his days. Never to escape again. But what a hell of a way to get there.
My stars. That's a lot.
So that's our story. So what's our ridiculous takeaway here, Elizabeth?
Well, there's so much. I mean, okay, so this guy, here's what kind of bugs me too, is that when he's faking the insanity plea,
the Gary
right?
Ross.
The thing is that those hospitals are not like a cakewalk.
No, they're not pleasant places, generally speaking.
Right. So it's less security, but I think it's like even more traumatic in some cases than doing time.
But not if you know you're getting over. I think he's so satisfied by the fact he's getting over that he's able to know he only has to do a few months. Eventually, they'll lower their guard and he'll just walk out the back door.
Wow.
So to him, it's just like between the choice of going to prison or even jail and going into a mental hospital and just having to be around a bunch of people who are screaming and hitting themselves in the head. He's like, I can do 3 months of that standing on my head. No problem.
Yeah,
and he does it every time.
Wow.
So it would have been traumatic if he took it in. If he actually thought he was going to be there. If he thought, this is who I am, this is my life, I'm now in a mental hospital. It was a dodge
but he's
for
like,
him.
I know, I just have to, this is a way station.
This is a terrible bus station
now,
I'm
I'll tell
sitting
you
in.
what I'm really fixated on too is Robin. What happened to Robin? Like the loss of her mother just made her go over the edge.
And then she wanted to it's like a weird action movie sequel where like the daughter goes on to get the mother's, like she didn't quite fail, but she did not get her justice. So she's like, I'm going to go do it. But in this case, it's the strangest mission possible.
Well, and I think about a lot of like the skyjackings and stuff where they have this list of demands or any hostage situation. They have a list of demands. And some of them you realize they didn't really think this out. So like with Robin, was she's going to spring him out? He's in trial, right? Like, so
she just wants him to be released from the prison.
Okay, and then what?
Put on the plane with her, and then the plane will be flown to Cuba, Angola, Canada, wherever they want to go. They'll let the passengers off, and the two of them will, I don't know, start their life together in Liberia.
Right. I don't know. You hear about hostage situations where they're like, I want a school bus.
Yes.
And I want $500,000, and they list all this stuff, and you're like, They're not going to give that to you. Have you not figured that out?
Yeah. Sometimes they will, but it depends on the demands. Most of the time, they're just buying time.
Yeah.
But this is the thing we constantly run across, which is the reason why you're most likely going to be a story that we talk about is because you did not think about getting away with the crime. Instead, you thought about doing the crime.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't think about the after logistics.
The crime is 3 components. You got to think of the crime, you got to do the crime, you got to get away with the crime.
Yeah.
That's a crime. It's 3 components, beginning, middle, and end. If you get stuck in the middle, well, you let someone else write the end, and that's probably going to be your ass going to jail.
That's a good point. And then you're going to wind up getting talked about on this goofball show.
Exactly. That's my ridiculous takeaway.
That's beautiful.
Well, thank you for joining us. I am Elizabeth Dutton.
I'm Elizabeth. And I'm also Gary Ross.
Gary Ross, the man.
Look out.
The one never to trust. You can find us online at Ridiculous Crime on both Twitter and Instagram. You got a tip for us about a ridiculous crime you'd like to hear about? You want to confess to ridiculous crime?
Just keep it to yourself.
No, email
us. I'm just kidding.
Or send us a telegram if you can figure out how. Yeah. ridiculouscrime@gmail.com. Ridiculous Crime is hosted by Elizabeth Dutton and Zaron Burnett. Produced and edited by TWA President of Operations Dave Kustik. Research is by FAA Special Investigator Marissa Brown. Our theme song is by Richard Nixon Librarian Thomas Lee and Fidel Castro Body Double Travis Dutton. Executive producers are Ben, Aren't I the Nicest Hijacker? Bolin, and No, I'm the Nicest Hijacker Brown.
Ridiculous crime.
Say it one more time.
Ridiculous crime.
Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.